The arrival, an omen of destruction. The Galactic Union's fleet hovered in the dark void of space, just outside the Orion expanse. Hundreds of warships formed a blockade, their metal hulls reflecting the distant glow of dying stars. Inside the command ship, Admiral Krillon of the Zorith Empire stood with his arms crossed, his scaled face showing nothing but confidence. "This is pointless," he muttered, watching the holographic display. Beside him, a nervous officer from the Koran species hesitated before speaking. "Admiral, our scouts reported an unidentified warship entering the sector. The size of the vessel is unusual." Krillon smirked. "Unusual? We control this galaxy. No unknown warship can stand against the might of the Union." The officer nodded but still seemed uneasy. Something about this situation felt wrong. The unknown warship had appeared from nowhere, approaching at an unnatural speed. No diplomatic signal, no response to hails, just a silent approach through the black void of space. The Admiral turned to his tactical officer. "Have we identified the species of this warship?" "No, sir. Its design does not match any known race. Its energy signature is strange." Krillon scoffed. "Send a warning. Tell them to turn back or be destroyed." The message was sent, but the warship did not slow down. It continued its path, heading straight for the blockade. And then, the alarms blared. "Sir, the ship just jumped. It's right in front of us." Krillon's eyes widened as the holographic display flickered, showing the massive black warship that had appeared in the middle of their formation. No warp signature, no energy surge. It had simply appeared. The ship was unlike anything they had ever seen. It was enormous, nearly twice the size of the largest battleship in the Union fleet. Its surface was smooth, dark, and seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. No visible markings, no insignia, just a silent, terrifying presence. The bridge of the command ship fell silent. Even the Admiral felt a strange sensation crawling up his spine. Then, a message came through. A simple, chilling transmission. "Surrender or be erased." The voice was cold, mechanical, and emotionless. It spoke in perfect galactic standard, as if the ship already knew their language. The officers exchanged glances. No species had ever dared to threaten the Union so boldly. Krillon's expression turned from shock to anger. "How dare they?" he growled. "Prepare all weapons. If they will not bow to the Union, we will destroy them." The fleet obeyed instantly. Hundreds of warships powered up their weapons, targeting the unknown vessel. Missiles loaded, energy cannons charged, and the might of the Galactic Union prepared to crush this insignificant intruder. Krillon raised his clawed hand and gave the order. Fire. A storm of firepower erupted in space. Hundreds of missiles streaked toward the dark warship, their warheads glowing with plasma energy. Energy beams cut through the void, aimed at the center of the unknown vessel. The fleet watched in anticipation, expecting to see the enemy ship break apart in a brilliant explosion. But then, something impossible happened. The warship did not move. The missiles struck its surface and vanished. The energy beams hit, but instead of an explosion, there was nothing. No damage, no impact. It was as if the attacks had simply disappeared into the void. Krillon's heart pounded. What is this?" The tactical officer's voice trembled. "Sir, our weapons had no effect. It's like the ship is absorbing everything we throw at it." The warship remained silent for a moment, as if it was studying them. Then, without any visible weapons being deployed, it retaliated. A single red light appeared on the dark warship's hull. It pulsed once, then fired. One beam, one shot, and an entire Union battleship exploded in an instant. There was no warning, no impact delay, just instant destruction. A ship that had stood for decades with powerful shielding and reinforced hull plating was now gone, reduced to floating debris in less than a second. Silence filled the command bridge. For the first time in his long career, Admiral Krillon felt fear. The warship had barely fired. No massive weapon deployment, no sign of strain. It had destroyed one of their strongest vessels with a single shot. And then, the warship moved. It turned toward them. A sense of dread filled the air. The fleet, once confident and prepared for battle, now hesitated. The warship did not hesitate. It advanced. The alarms blared louder. Officers shouted. Krellon clenched his fists, his voice shaking as he gave the order. All ships, re-to-re-80. Panic spread through the Union fleet. Warships turned, breaking formation, desperate to flee. But the warship was faster. As it closed in, another red light pulsed on its surface. Krellon knew what was coming. And in that moment, he understood the truth. This was no ordinary enemy. This was a force of destruction, a nightmare made real. And the galaxy would never be the same again. First strike. Power beyond imagination. The Galactic Union fleet was in chaos. Warships scrambled to reposition, captains shouted conflicting orders, and the once proud blockade was now a fragmented, terrified mass. The unknown human warship loomed in the void, silent, unshaken, and completely unharmed. Inside the command ship, Admiral Krellon's claws dug into the armrest of his chair. His reptilian eyes were locked onto the holographic display. The impossible had happened. A single ship had withstood everything they had thrown at it. And worse, it had destroyed a battleship with a single shot. "Sir, our forces are breaking formation," an officer yelled. Krellon slammed his fist onto the control panel. "Regroup. No one runs from this fight. I don't care what that thing is. We will destroy it." But deep inside, fear had already poisoned his mind. This wasn't just a warship. This was something beyond their understanding. The Union strikes back. The remaining Union warships adjusted their formation, encircling the black warship like a swarm of insects around a predator. "Surround it. Fire from all sides." Krellon barked. The fleet obeyed. Missiles, plasma bolts, and energy cannons fired in perfect synchronization, painting the void with explosions. Every single weapon the Union had was unleashed. But then, something horrifying happened. The warship vanished. One moment it was there. The next, it was gone, as if reality itself had swallowed it whole. The battlefield fell into silence. The officers aboard the command ship froze, eyes wide in disbelief. "Where did it go?" one whispered. And then, behind US, the human warship reappeared, moving at an unnatural speed, bypassing every defense, every radar, every scanning system. Before the Union fleet could react, it struck. The nightmare unfolds. A blinding red light cut through the void. One beam, 1 second, and 2 more warships exploded. Not damaged, not crippled, erased. Their debris scattered into the vacuum, lifeless and burning. The remaining Union ships were stunned into silence. They had seen powerful weapons before, but nothing like this. Krellon's blood turned to ice. How is this possible?" The tactical officer's voice trembled. "Sir, this is beyond anything in the Union's records. It's like their technology isn't even bound by physics." The warship hovered in the darkness, watching them. It didn't rush, didn't attack recklessly. It was like a predator playing with its prey. And then, the transmission came again. "Your weapons are useless. Your strategy is flawed. Your fleet is already dead. Run, or suffer." The voice was cold, unfeeling. It wasn't a demand. It was a statement. The panic begins. A Union captain aboard a nearby cruiser snapped. His species, the insectoid Thrana, were fearless warriors, but this was beyond terror. "Fuel speed. Get US out of here." His crew obeyed, activating the ship's warp drive. Energy surged, engines flared, and the warship prepared to flee. But then, another red light pulsed, and the cruiser ceased to exist. There was no wreckage, no explosion, just nothing. The ship had been erased, as if it had never been there. The realization sank in. Running was not an option. The Union's greatest fleet, a force meant to rule the stars, was now cornered like frightened prey. Krillon's breath came in short gasps. His claws trembled. They had made a terrible mistake. This wasn't just an enemy. This was the doom of the Galactic Union. A desperate decision. Krillon swallowed his pride. He turned to his communication officer. "Send a distress signal to the core worlds." His voice was hoarse. "Tell them, we have encountered something beyond our understanding." The officer hesitated. "Sir, are we admitting defeat?" Krillon closed his eyes. His mind raced with possibilities, with outcomes. There was only one outcome now. "This is no longer a battle," he said quietly. "This is a message." The warship wasn't just destroying them. It was sending a warning, and the entire galaxy was about to hear it. The unstoppable force. The Galactic Union fleet was in complete disarray. Admiral Krillon had seen many battles in his lifetime, had crushed rebellions, had burned entire worlds in the name of order. He had always believed in the absolute power of the Union. But now, he was watching the death of that belief. The unknown human warship hovered in the black void, its surface absorbing every flicker of light. It did not rush to attack. It did not speak. It waited, like a god watching insects scramble for survival. Fear spreads like fire. The command bridge of Krillon's ship was filled with voices, but none of them carried confidence. "Admiral, we must retreat. Our weapons are useless. It's hunting us like we are nothing." Krillon clenched his fists. His reptilian eyes locked onto the holographic display, where the warship still remained motionless. "They are waiting for something," he muttered. The realization made his skin crawl. The warship had fired only 3 times. Each shot had been perfect, precise, unstoppable. It had not missed once. It was not fighting like a normal fleet. It was not panicking or struggling. It was playing a game. Krillon's hands trembled. This ship is toying with us." Then, as if responding to his words, the warship moved. The hunt begins. It was fast, unnaturally fast. One moment it was in the center of the battlefield. The next, it had blinked behind a cluster of Union warships. A red pulse. Boom. A cruiser exploded, its remains scattering into nothingness. Before the rest of the fleet could react, the warship vanished again. "Where is it?" Panic filled the Union channels. The scanners couldn't track it. The radars were useless. The warship was moving in ways no technology should allow. Another flash, another shot. A battlecruiser was erased. And then another, and another. The Union fleet was not fighting a ship. They were being hunted. The unbreakable shield. In a desperate attempt to survive, the remaining Union warships formed a defensive circle. Hundreds of ships, shields overlapping, weapons locked onto a single point. They were ready. If the warship attacked, they would strike with everything they had left. For a moment, silence filled the battlefield. And then, it came. The warship did not slow down. It did not evade. It dove straight into the center of their formation. Every Union ship opened fire at once. A wall of plasma, nuclear warheads, devastating laser cannons. The entire void was lit up like a dying sun. For a brief moment, hope sparked in Krillon's heart. Then the flames faded, and the warship was still there, untouched. Krillon felt his stomach drop. Impossible. Not a single scratch. The greatest firepower of the Union. Meaningless. And then, for the first time, the warship's hull began to shift. It was adapting, changing, growing. The final blow. The deep, vibrating hum filled the battlefield. It was not sound. It was something else. Something felt in the bones of every Union soldier. The warship's front hull split open. A new weapon was forming. Something greater than before. Krillon's breath hitched. His mind screamed to run, but his body wouldn't move. This was true power. This was humanity's revenge. The warship's core pulsed once, and the sky shattered. A beam of pure annihilation erupted from the warship, cutting through the Union fleet like paper. 10 ships, 20, 50. Krillon's own ship trembled under the force of it. The last thing he saw before the light consumed his command bridge was the warship's message flashing on the screen. This is only the beginning. And then, darkness. Humanity's message to the galaxy. Darkness. Silence. Nothingness. Admiral Krillon's consciousness flickered like a dying flame. He wasn't sure if he was still alive. He felt weightless, drifting through the void. Then, a sound. A faint, rhythmic beeping. Pain surged through his body as he gasped for breath, his vision clearing to a hellish sight. His command ship, what remained of it, was floating half-destroyed in space. Fires burned along the shattered hull. Bodies of his crew drifted lifelessly in the cold void. The fleet was gone. The once mighty armada of the Galactic Union, a force feared across the stars, had been wiped out. And floating in the distance, unscathed, untouched, unconcerned, was the warship. It had not left. It was watching. The warship speaks. Krillon coughed, his lungs burning. His survival pod had barely activated in time. A few of his officers had made it, but they all sat in stunned silence, staring at the black warship hovering before them. Then, without warning, every surviving Union vessel received a transmission. A screen flickered to life. The image that appeared was not a person, not a face. It was Earth, a broken world. Its continents were scorched, its oceans were blackened, its cities, nothing but ruins. A deep, emotionless voice spoke. "You called us primitives." The image shifted, showing Union fleets from centuries ago, bombarding Earth, reducing it to ash. "You called us weak." Another image, alien soldiers marching through the burning remains of human cities, dragging the survivors away in chains. "You tried to erase us." The screen darkened, and then a new image appeared. Rows upon rows of warships, black, sleek, and far larger than the one before them. Krillon's breath caught in his throat. This wasn't the only warship. There were hundreds, maybe thousands. The voice spoke again. "You failed. The galaxy hears the truth." The message was not just for the survivors. It was being broadcasted across the entire galaxy, to every world, every empire, every species. Billions of beings across the stars watched in horror as the truth unfolded before them. Humanity had not been destroyed. Humanity had been preparing. And now, they had returned. On the great capital world of the Galactic Union, the Supreme Council sat frozen as the transmission played on their massive screens. The council leader, an ancient being with 6 eyes, trembled. This cannot be real. But it was. The image changed one last time. It showed the human warship, but behind it, the void was shifting. More ships were coming. This was only the beginning. And then the final words of the transmission appeared in bold letters. "We do not seek conquest. We do not seek peace. We seek justice." The transmission cut. Silence filled the capital chambers. And for the first time in history, the galaxy trembled in fear. The desperate stand. The Galactic Union had ruled for over 10,000 years. No empire had dared to challenge its might. No species had ever stood against it and survived. Until now. Until humanity returned. The warship's broadcast had spread like wildfire. Every corner of the galaxy had seen it. Every empire, every colony, every warlord. The Union's greatest secret, the genocide of Earth, was no longer hidden. And now retribution was coming. The gathering storm. The Supreme Council of the Galactic Union, a collection of the most powerful beings in the known universe, was in chaos. The capital world, Prime Nexus, had not seen an emergency of this scale in over 5,000 years. The broadcast had shattered the illusion of security. Millions of citizens panicked in the streets. Leaders of smaller empires withdrew their alliances, fearing they would be next. And the military. They were terrified. Because the impossible had happened. An unknown human warship had single-handedly annihilated an entire Union fleet. And that was just one ship. Now, the supreme commander of the Union's military, Lord High Marshal Vornak, stood before the council, his armored body tense. "We must prepare for war," Vornak growled. "Humanity will not stop with a single warning." One of the council members, a pale-skinned senator with glass-like eyes, hissed in frustration. "They seek justice. Let us offer them peace before this escalates." Another councillor slammed their fist on the table. "They wiped out an entire fleet. Peace is no longer an option. We must eradicate them before they reach our core worlds." The chamber erupted in shouting. But Vornak wasn't listening. His eyes were locked on a single transmission flickering across his private screen. A deep space monitoring station near the outer rim had detected something. Something terrifying. The warship from the broadcast, the Harbinger, as it was now called, was no longer alone. Hundreds more had appeared, and they were moving toward Prime Nexus, the Union's final defense. Across the capital world, the largest fleet in history was assembled. Over 50,000 warships. Every empire still loyal to the Union had sent forces, thousands of elite warriors, billions of battle drones. If humanity thought they could strike at the heart of the Union, they would face the full might of the galaxy. On the bridge of the Union's flagship, the Immortal Wrath, Lord High Marshal Vornak prepared for battle. "We will not be afraid," he growled. His officers saluted, but there was doubt in their eyes. Because they had all seen the broadcast. They had all seen the Harbinger. And deep down, they knew. This war might already be lost. The sky burns. The first sensors detected them hours later. At first, the fleet commanders thought it was a glitch. No warp signatures, no hyperspace jumps. Just sudden appearances, hundreds of human warships emerging from the void itself. And then, the war began. The Union's fleets opened fire first. Massive energy cannons lit up the sky. Planetary defense systems activated, launching city-sized missiles. Every gun, every fleet, every weapon the Union had was unleashed in a storm of destruction. For a moment, it seemed like the galaxy's greatest army would hold. Then, the Harbinger moved. The fall of the Union's might. The human warships did not dodge. They did not retreat. They advanced. Shields that defied physics. Weapons that ripped holes in reality itself. Union warships vanished by the hundreds. Cities on the capital world burned as orbital bombardments rained down from above. The Harbinger carved a path through the heart of the fleet, a force of destruction beyond understanding. The Immortal Wrath, the Union's pride and command ship, turned all weapons toward the Harbinger. Vornak refused to surrender. "All ships, focus fire on the lead warship. It must be destroyed at all costs." Thousands of weapons locked onto a single target. The Harbinger did not move. It did not flinch. And then, it fired. One single shot. A beam of annihilation pierced the Immortal Wrath, slicing through the ship like it was made of paper. Lord High Marshal Vornak had only one moment to realize the truth. The war had never been a war. It had been an execution. And then, his ship was gone. The end of an era. The Galactic Union fell that day. Their fleets shattered. Their leaders vanished. And their capital world. Reduced to ruins. Not conquered. Not enslaved. Just gone. Humanity did not claim the throne of the Union. They did not demand power. They left behind one final message, broadcast across the ruins of Prime Nexus. A simple, haunting phrase. The debt is paid. And then, just as they had arrived, the Harbinger fleet vanished into the void. The last hope, or the final doom. The Galactic Union was no more. Once, it had ruled over thousands of worlds, boasting the greatest fleets in the universe. Its leaders had sat atop golden thrones, believing themselves to be untouchable. And yet, in a matter of days, humanity had erased it. Its capital world lay in ruins, its fleets reduced to drifting debris, its rulers either dead or in hiding. But not everyone had perished. Scattered across the void, survivors from the fallen Union gathered in secrecy, whispering of a single desperate hope. The war wasn't over. Not yet. The secret council, far from the ruins of Prime Nexus, on a hidden moon cloaked in darkness, the last remnants of the Union's leadership gathered. The air in the underground chamber was heavy with fear. The once mighty warlords and admirals who had ruled the galaxy now looked like cornered animals. A holographic display flickered before them, showing the same terrifying image that haunted every survivor's mind. The Harbinger. One warship had started this nightmare, and no one knew how many more lurked in the shadows. The former council leader, a withered being with sapphire-colored skin, clenched his trembling hands. This cannot be the end. His voice was weak. Desperate, we must find a way to strike back. A bitter laugh came from the other side of the table. Strike back. Against them. The speaker, a scared, battle-worn general named Vorak, slammed his fist on the table. "You don't understand," he growled. "We lost before the war even started." Murmurs filled the chamber, but one voice silenced them all. "They are still out there," the hooded figure spoke, "and they will return." All eyes turned to the source of the voice, Grand Strategist Aurelius, the last surviving mind behind the Union's war plans. His face was gaunt, his eyes haunted. He had spent his entire life studying war, and never, not once, had he encountered an enemy like this. "What do you propose?" the council leader asked cautiously. Aurelius exhaled slowly. "There is only one way to stop them." The room tensed. "We must find their homeworld." The hunt for Earth. For centuries, Earth had been erased from history. Its location had been struck from all records. Its name had become nothing more than a myth. But now, it was the only place that mattered. If they could find Earth, they could end this nightmare before humanity's full fleet descended upon the galaxy. "We know nothing about their numbers," Aurelius continued. "That warship was a weapon beyond anything we have seen, but there must be a limit to their power." The logic was sound. Every empire had weaknesses. Every species had breaking points. If Earth was their home, if it was the heart of their military, then destroying it might be their last hope. A holographic display lit up, showing the most classified data in the Union's archives. Coordinates, star maps, faint traces of a long-dead civilization. There was only one problem. There are no known records of Earth's exact location, an intelligence officer admitted. It was erased. Aurelius smiled coldly. "That's what they want us to believe." He turned to Vorak. "Gather the last of our fleets. We are going to find Earth." The room fell silent. For the first time since the war had begun, the Union had a plan. A chance, a final hope, or perhaps their final doom. The shadow of the Harbinger. Far beyond the reach of the Union's last survivors, in the infinite blackness of space, the Harbinger watched. Its cold, unfeeling sensors had detected the last remnants of the enemy plotting their escape. It did not follow. It did not attack. Because it did not need to. Humanity already knew what they were planning. They had always known. Inside the warship, deep within its dark corridors, a single chilling message was transmitted across its hidden fleet. The words were simple, but their meaning was absolute. Let them come. And across the void, in the places where no light had ever touched, the rest of humanity's fleet stirred. The war was not over. Humanity's final judgment. The hunt for Earth had begun. The shattered remnants of the Galactic Union, now little more than a desperate coalition of survivors, pushed deeper into the unknown regions of space. They had no choice. Their fleets had been devastated. Their worlds had been reduced to ruins. And humanity. Humanity was still watching. Aurelius, the last surviving grand strategist of the Union, sat in the dark command chamber of the flagship Requiem's Vow. In front of him, a holographic projection displayed the fragmented maps of an ancient war, the first war against humanity. This was the last secret the Union had tried to bury. The true location of Earth. The journey into the void. We found something. Vorak, the battle-hardened general, stepped forward, his expression grim. Our long-range probes detected a planet that fits the parameters. The room fell silent. Every survivor in the fleet had the same thought. Could this be it? After centuries of hiding after their terrifying return, was this the world that had spawned humanity's vengeance? Aurelius didn't hesitate. Set a course. Their last hope depended on it. If Earth was still vulnerable, if it could still be destroyed, then maybe, just maybe, they could prevent the end of everything. But deep in his heart, Aurelius felt something he had never felt before. Doubt. The illusion of victory. As the Union fleet approached the desolate, war-scarred planet, they found ruins, burned cities, shattered landscapes, a world that had long ago been abandoned. The atmosphere was silent, lifeless. Vorak scanned the surface, his jaw tightening. "Are we too late?" he muttered. Aurelius didn't answer. He knew something was wrong. This didn't feel like a homeworld. It felt like a grave. Suddenly, the sensors blared. Warning. Unknown energy signature. A whisper ran through the command deck. Something is down there. Aurelius narrowed his eyes. Send a scouting team. Within minutes, landing craft descended into the ruins of old Earth. The last warning. The scouting team moved carefully through the wreckage. Massive structures, once towering symbols of civilization, lay in ruins. There were no bodies, no signs of life, just silence. Then they found it. A single ancient structure still standing in the heart of the ruins. Inside, they discovered something that froze them in place. A single terminal, flickering weakly, and a message. A message written in a language that had not been spoken in the galaxy for centuries. But they all understood, because the words were not just for them. They were for anyone who dared to come looking. The screen flickered. Then, a voice. Calm, cold, unforgiving. "You have made a mistake." A figure appeared. A human. Not a soldier. Not a warrior. Just a man. And yet, his eyes burned with something far more terrifying than rage. Certainty. "You came looking for Earth," the voice continued. "But Earth is gone." A cold chill spread through the fleet. Gone. Then where? "You thought you were hunting us. You thought this was your last hope." A pause. And then, "You were never hunting us. We were hunting you." And in that moment, the sky shattered. The arrival of judgment. From the depths of space, they emerge. The real fleet. Not a few ships. Not 100. Not 1,000. But millions. The ruins of old Earth had been a trap. A final test. A message to those who still believed they could stop what was coming. And now, the last survivors of the Union had failed that test. The Harbinger itself descended from the void, its hull blacker than the abyss. A voice, no longer just a transmission, spoke from the warship. The final sentence the Union would ever hear. "Your empire is dust. Your fleets are nothing. Your time is over." And then, the sky burned. The end of the Galactic Union. The final battle was not a battle. It was a massacre. The Harbinger fleet did not attack with rage. They did not scream in anger. They did not demand surrender. They simply erased the last of the Union from existence. Aurelius, watching from the bridge of his dying ship, finally understood. Humanity had never been fighting for revenge. They had never been fighting for justice. They had already won. They were simply ensuring that history would never repeat itself. With his last breath, Aurelius whispered a single thought. We were never the conquerors. We were the prey, the legacy of the Harbinger. The war ended without celebration. There were no demands, no conquerors claiming thrones. The Harbinger fleet vanished into the void, just as they had appeared. And the galaxy was left in silence. A warning, a lesson, and an eternal truth. Humanity had survived, and they would never be hunted again.